Again, thanks to everybody for being here. My name's David Pierce. I'm the editor at large at Protocol, and this is, I think, our 5th virtual meetup, and we're doing a bunch more of these. They're going to be really fun, but I don't care about any of those. Mostly, I'm excited about this one. And my guest today is Neal Mohan, the Chief Product Officer at YouTube. Neal, hi. Thank you for being here.
Hi, David. Nice to be here.
How are you? How are you holding up?
Holding up okay, all things considered. Similar to probably some of the same challenges and kind of new insights that you're experiencing. Just working from home, as I'm sure a lot of people on this webinar. I've got 3 kids at home, so one or more of them might run onto the screen any moment. But yes, holding up all right.
Good. I'm glad. And I was reading this morning, and this was like a total accident of timing, but I was reading this morning that today is the 15th anniversary of the first YouTube video. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. I think everybody knows that famous first video of me at the zoo. And so that today happens to be the day when I think it was like YouTube being launched and incorporated in that video. I can't remember. I can't get the exact date straight on that, but yes, 15th anniversary of YouTube.
It's crazy. It feels like thousands of years YouTube has been around at this point. That's wild. So let's dive in here. So I feel like you're in this interesting position, and part of the reason I wanted to talk to you is because you're at YouTube at the center of so many different parts of life right now, whether it's the ad market or entertainment or news or misinformation. Like you're sort of sitting at the middle of all of this. But I think I want to start at sort of a high level, which is basically, I feel like YouTube has a different idea about sort of what it is at this moment in time than maybe the way the company has conceived of itself before. And maybe I'm overstating that, but I am curious. Like, I want to talk tactics in a second, but give me sort of a sense of what you feel like YouTube's role is in these coronavirus times.
Yeah, I mean, I would say a couple of things, and really the way that I would frame it, David, is a lot of the core essence of the platform. We're talking about the 15th anniversary in terms of how it was founded, the nature of our community, and sort of the nature of our open platform. Those things remain the same, and I do think that they have formed kind of the basis where some of the strength in terms of our platform and the role that it plays in terms of the entire world fighting coronavirus and COVID-19. And I would say I'd call out 2 things there. One is I do think that we are seeing the strength and value of an open platform like YouTube, both in terms of the nature of the content that's being produced there, how people are connecting, as we go to this world where everybody is sheltering in place, not just here in the US, but around the world. YouTube is a place where a lot of those connections are happening. And I think that goes back again to the very first video that was founded, that was uploaded, in terms of YouTube being a place where people connect. I would say another sort of core aspect of what has been, certainly my top priority, our company's top priority, is recognizing the fact that YouTube is a global platform, and we have a big responsibility as a global platform, especially when users are coming to our platform looking for information, looking for news, etc. And so those 2 things I think have been consistent on our platform, the openness as well as this notion of responsibility. They have, of course, taken on kind of almost new meaning, if you will, or sort of a heightened kind of status of awareness as a result of this crisis.
Yeah, well, and that's one of the things that's so interesting to me about this, because I feel like the sort of how do you keep bad things off of YouTube is permanently a complicated question, and we're going to get to that one in a second. But I feel like you've also taken kind of a stronger role in leading people towards good information over the last several weeks. Like I've noticed, even the fact that you put sort of a COVID-19 bar on the YouTube homepage is a big deal. Like that's valuable internet real estate. It's like, how do you think about, especially in a world where all of the information is changing and it feels like nobody knows anything day to day, like what is the process internally at YouTube for trying to figure out how do we tell people what to look at here?
Yeah, I mean, look, and you're pointing out one of the things that we've done. YouTube, the fundamental goal is connecting people with the information, the content, the entertainment, the learning that that they love, that they're looking for, and that sort of is sort of the primary framework. A big part, though, of this focus on our responsibility as a global platform, though, is what I was is this what you're alluding to, which is raising up authoritative voices on our platform. And so let me sort of make that very concrete. In this crisis, you said it yourself, information is fast moving. There's also misinformation, which we'll get to, but information is changing really fast, both amongst medical professionals and in terms of how that applies to all of us as, kind of citizens of the world. And so our goal there is to really raise up these authoritative voices, make them, prominent in our platform. And even before I get to, the shelf that you're referring to, in a fundamental sense, what that means is that when we recommend videos alongside videos that you might be watching or right below a video that you might be watching on this topic of coronavirus, we want to make sure that they're coming from authoritative sources. And I'll describe that in a second. When you're searching for COVID-19 coronavirus related information, we want that content to come from authoritative sources. Authoritative source is a general term that we use to describe news sources that have a history of credibility and relevance in a particular area. But in the case of medical information, we also want to include medical authorities, either your National Health Authority, the World Health Organization, et cetera, as places for contextualized, vetted, highly credible information. And we want that to take a prominent place in our recommendations, in our search, et cetera.
But what's strange about that is that it seems like, sorry, and I don't mean to cut you off, but it seems like even in that, we're now in this place where figuring out who counts as authoritative is no longer necessarily as obvious as it should be. I mean, you have the White House arguing with the WHO, and I think and then on the sort of the flip side, you have people who are well-meaning and trying their hardest, but don't necessarily have all the information because all the information is not easy to find. So I feel like, is it even harder than normal to figure out who counts as authoritative? I mean, it's a big sort of, affirmation to put someone on that list.
Yeah. So first of all, it's not sort of a hard and fast list, and it's actually based on the foundation of a lot of work that we've been doing over the course of the last 2-3 years. So it's not something that sort of happened magically overnight as a result of this. It's been built on a technological framework as well as sort of a kind of methodological framework in terms of using evaluators all around the world that are sort of meant to be reflective of sort of their underlying societies, countries, et cetera. But in the case of medical information, you're right, you need actually another level of more specialized expertise. So we actually do work with doctors and medical professionals to help us establish kind of what could be authoritative sources or not. And those are sort of the algorithms and kind of human evaluations that we apply to come up with that list. It's dynamic, it changes, but those are the people that, those are the channels on our platform from whom we source the videos for recommendation, search, et cetera. But I would highlight one other thing, and you touched on this in your question earlier, which is, I think it's not just enough to sort of surface these videos when users are looking for them in search or when we recommend them alongside another video that they may be watching. So we've gone one step further, and you may have noticed that on videos that are related to this content in the broadest sense, we actually are now serving up information panels. And these are actually text-based information panels that link out to the World Health Organization, the CDC, or the relevant national health authority in countries all over the world. And there is such a hunger for this type of information. Those information panels have gotten on the order of 14 billion impressions across all of our platform. We also have, as you described, for every single user that opens up the YouTube app on Android, on iOS, et cetera, there is a COVID-19 news shelf that is refreshed, relevant. And this goes back to the point that information is literally changing on a daily, on an hourly basis. And so we want users to be exposed to the most relevant, most credible, most timely information. And you're right, it takes up space in our feed, in kind of the core place where users go when they open up the app. But we think that the nature of this crisis and getting information to our users is so important that I personally think that's the right trade-off to make in the interest of serving our users.
Okay. And then what about the flip side of this? Because it seems like one interesting thing that's been that we've been tracking at Protocol is kind of watching companies like YouTube and Facebook and Twitter take a much sort of harder line on what is and is not acceptable on the platform because of coronavirus. Like that we've seen, you know, things like politics be harder to figure out sort of where the line is, but that things are much starker as we talk about the pandemic. And even I think it was just the other day that Susan was saying that anything that's not medically authoritative is going to be removed from YouTube. And that's like, that just seems like a whole mess of moderation that I can't imagine wading into. But like, is it true that it feels like the lines are much brighter for you when you think about what does and doesn't belong on YouTube right now?
So the way I would describe it, David, is that again, just like the whole question of raising up authoritative content and authoritative voices, this question of removing or reducing misinformation or other sort of harmful content is actually also based on a framework and a lot of work, both in terms of detection, in terms of using machine learning and classifiers, but also in terms of building out a policy framework in our community guidelines, as well as building up a force of raters and evaluators. That's been going on for 2 or 3 years. And if it wasn't for all of that hard work, we wouldn't be in a place where we are today in terms of being able to deal with this content. So first and foremost, we've removed on the order of thousands of videos since the beginning of this crisis that relate to things like coronavirus misinformation. The policy framework that we use has actually sort of, as I said, existed and sort of been foundational. And so we've always had a policy, for example, in terms of removing information or misinformation that might promote like a harmful cure. You know, drink this, even though it might hurt you, and you know you'll be cured, or something that prevents people from seeking timely medical care, which is COVID-19 is this, you don't really need to worry about it, blah blah blah, that kind of a thing. And so we've used that framework to take down videos that might be misleading people on our platform. But again, going back to something that you said earlier, information is changing really, really rapidly. And bad information is popping up really rapidly as well. There's been conspiracy theories, there's been that are, commercially motivated, politically motivated, what have you. We want to make sure that that's not getting in the way of the core messages of these health authorities. So that's kind of the way that we've been thinking about it. And to give you some examples, we use that existing policy and updated our enforcement of that policy to also include things like commentary that might encourage people to flout stay-at-home orders or stay-at-home advice that they might be getting from their national health authority. Because in my mind, that's like a kind of a false narrative underneath our medical misinformation policy, and we've been striking those videos. And by the way, we strike videos based on the nature of the content of those videos. It has nothing to do with who the speaker might be of those videos or who created that channel in the first place. If the content is violative, we will remove it from our platform. And that happens to be an example of something that we've done. And every week, we're probably making sort of 2-3 enforcement guideline updates to that sort of overall foundational policy that we have, because this is such a fast moving crisis.
Okay. Has the pace changed at all? Are you finding you're taking more action on more videos because of all of this?
I think the pace has definitely changed because the nature of the type of misinformation, or like the threads of sort of conspiracies and misinformation, are changing all the time. A, because some of the underlying facts are changing, but B, also because the nature of the misinformation is changing, where we have to give all of our evaluators new guidance to enact underneath those policies. So 4 weeks ago, would we have been talking about things like coronavirus and 5G conspiracies? No. Well, that happened. And so we need to update our enforcement guidelines around that and make sure that we remove those videos from our platform. Because in my mind, if somebody believes that this disease is spread through 5G, that means that they're not going to go and actually seek the medical care that they need, or recognize it actually is a virus and they need to wash their hands. So that's a policy violation. We're going to strike that type of content. And that's happening rapidly. We have one of the other tools that we established that's come in handy here is what we call an intelligence desk. And this is a team of professionals who actually try to look kind of just over the horizon, if you will, in terms of where a conspiracy might be coming from, where misinformation might be coming from, so that we can do our best to sort of stay ahead of something that might be emerging before it becomes a challenge on our platform.
Okay. So, and actually what you bring up one of the things that David Polgar also just brought up in our Q&A, which, by the way, I forgot to mention at the top. If you have questions, there's a Q&A function in Zoom and you can ask questions. I can't promise I'll get to all of them, but we'll try. And David's question was about masks. And this sort of goes to the same thing where, like, a month ago, telling everyone that they should wear a mask was not necessarily commonplace advice. And now it is. And I think YouTube has sort of done work to keep up, but we've seen other platforms have issues with banning mask content, even in the middle of sort of changing medical advice. So it's, I guess the broad question here is whether it's masks or 5G coronavirus conspiracy theories, like, is YouTube always going to be just sort of by necessity, sort of slightly behind the latest, trying to sort of whack-a-mole with whatever people are talking about? Or can you be more sort of proactive about what's going on?
So I think this is where kind of a lot of the concepts that we talked about sort of come together and sort of create what you see on YouTube. So the first point I would make there is this is the power of an open platform. It allows for content that is fresh, timely, relevant to get up on our platform in front of our users as quickly as possible. So that's kind of a foundational piece. But this is also where kind of raising up authoritative voices and making sure that we remove the misinformation come hand in hand. So let's take your mask example. You're right, guidance on masks has changed. And this is what I mean by, like, the actual underlying information is changing in a fundamental way really rapidly too. But this is the reason why I feel really strongly that when users are looking for this information, making sure that we're raising up authoritative voices is important, because the way that the question around masks would be covered by a credible sort of authoritative voice channel is that there would be context. There would be explanations behind why a particular mask decision was made or not. And so the user, the viewer of that content on our platform can make an informed decision for him or herself. And so, so as opposed to, it's somebody espousing their opinions about a mask, in their basement. This is coming from an authoritative channel, a news source, a medical professional. And if that's the case, we think there's going to be some context that's provided around the question of masks. And even if that guidance changes, it will be reflected in sort of how an authoritative voice or channel talks about it. A news organization might say, hey, today the guidance on masks has been updated. Here are the reasons why. Here's what it used to be and why it changed. And so that's where falling back to really raising up authoritative channels, videos from authoritative channels is important. And at the same time, removing or reducing views of the videos where that same level of authority hasn't been established. And I think those things coming together have made it so that we can keep pace with the rapid changes that are happening, but also make sure that they're being done in a responsible manner from authoritative voices.
Okay, got it. Okay, so I want to switch gears here a little bit because there's so much going on in YouTube. We could talk for like 6 hours here. But one of the things that's been really interesting to me to see on YouTube is how much sort of live streaming and interactive stuff has really taken off. And it may just be that I'm home looking for someone to talk to, but like I was on the site this morning looking at an upcoming music song premiere that's in 24 hours, and there were already people in the chat talking about that band, and just like you could tell people just sort of want to hang out. And like it feels like streaming and live and chat and sort of all things interactive have become a bigger piece of YouTube than ever before. Is that what you're seeing too?
Yeah, we're certainly seeing a lot. I'm certainly seeing a lot of growth in terms of live content on our platform, as you described, sort of places for people to come together and interact. And I think it goes back to those sort of two sort of fundamental characteristics of YouTube that I mentioned at the top. We talked a lot about our responsibility as a global platform, but I think the other piece is sort of core to YouTube, which is it is a place, it's a video platform, but what it really is underneath that is a place for, all of us as humans to connect on a global basis. And whether that means connecting with your favorite creator who you've already been, watching for a long time, or connecting with your favorite musician or artist, or connecting just with others around this crisis, we've seen sort of that core essence of YouTube become a really strong part of, kind of humanity's response to this crisis. And that's certainly a responsibility that I personally take incredibly seriously. And I think this is an area where YouTube is playing an important role in terms of helping people deal with this crisis as they shelter from home. And, some examples are, I think everybody has either seen or heard about the Andrea Bocelli concert that happened a couple of weeks ago. We watched it in my home. It was incredibly moving. It was beautiful. 27 million views right away, because we all are looking for means to connect, for inspiration, for hope. You gave some examples around live premieres that artists are doing. Sometimes they're just doing them from their bedroom or from their family room. And of course, it's a way to listen to really great music, but it's fundamentally also a place to connect. And our YouTubers are really amazing. We have YouTubers like Dude Perfect, like Lily Singh, who are using their voices not just to connect with users, but actually to raise money. So, Dude Perfect did like the quarantine Olympics, and they raised a bunch of money for the Red Cross. And so we're seeing all of that happen organically, because YouTube is this place where we all sort of come together to kind of connect.
Has that changed sort of how you think about what YouTube can be going forward? I mean, has all of this made you think that, live should be a bigger emphasis for YouTube than it has been in the past?
I mean, live has been an important, the way I think about it is people come to YouTube to connect, to consume, content from their favorite creators, favorite subjects, what have you. That can be on demand, it can be live, it can take many forms. It can take the form of a YouTube story, for example, or, as you described, a conversation that's happening in a chat window or on our comments. All of those are means of connecting and communicating on our platform. And I think live is no different in that sense. And live has been big. It's obviously always been big in the gaming community. Lots of live streams happening on YouTube. Lots of big live events have been happening on YouTube. But certainly, as one of the insights out of this crisis is that live is a really meaningful way for people to connect in real time. The way I always describe a live premiere on YouTube is it's a way of getting all fans, all people with shared interest in that single same movie theater all at once to kind of witness the event together. And especially in a world now where there aren't movie theaters, where we can't go to them, something like a live premiere on YouTube, I do think sort of serves that purpose for all of us as viewers on the platform.
Yeah. So, and what about with kids content? I feel like obviously there are tons of kids who are now at home. We've all sort of given up on the screen time fight, and it's just look at screens all day. It's fine. We all have to just get through this. And I feel like I'm sure YouTube kids content is way up, but like what are you seeing there, and how are you guys sort of thinking about kids content right now?
Yeah, so we're definitely seeing a lot of, there's a lot of consumption of content on YouTube Kids for sure, and that's where I feel really good about the fact that we built in things like the ability for parents to manage screen time as much as they choose to do, and or just pick the nature of the videos that their kids are watching, and YouTube Kids is certainly what my young kids watch when we let them watch it. The other thing that I would say about kids more broadly, though, is there's over 1 billion kids around the world that are at home, and parents are obviously trying to find ways to continue their children's education, homeschool when they can, et cetera. It's obviously a challenge for parents all around the world juggling that. So there's been a tremendous increase in interest around learning content. And YouTube has always been a place where people have gone to learn, whether it's something as simple as how to fix my garage door, to learning algebra or physics or what have you, kind of across the spectrum. And learning content is an area that's been growing quite a bit. For example, searches for the term like school at home or homeschool since the middle of March, they've doubled on our platform. So there's definitely been a lot of that growth. And you may have noticed. Right next to our home tab on the YouTube app, there's an Explore tab. And there we have a number of sort of chips that are sort of entry points to various parts of YouTube, whether it's, gaming or some of news or some of our other verticals. There's a learning chip, and it actually leads to a learning destination that includes a lot of content, everything from like Khan Academy content for young people to other things that might be even learning opportunities outside of the traditional classroom. And so all of that, is content that families, but also, all of us are adults are using to kind of to learn while we're stuck at home.
Yeah, that's cool. So let's talk about YouTube's business for a few minutes. And I partly want to talk about the YouTube side, but also the creator side of things. And I've been reading a lot and talking to a lot of people who are saying, I mean, and as anyone in really any business can tell you right now, like the advertising market is not great. Uh, and trying to sort through like not knowing how long all this is going to last and how you guys can be helping creators who are, relying on YouTube audiences for a big part of their income. Like what are you seeing sort of both on YouTube side and on the creator side right now?
Yeah, so I can't comment on anything sort of revenue specific, sort of outside of our earnings. But what I would say is this is at least in my lifetime, and I think most people's, there's never been a crisis like this that is so truly global in nature. All billions of us are literally focused on sort of one problem, one challenge right now, and that manifests itself across, um, you know, frankly, everything. And from our creator standpoint, we're doing, we work with our creators on a daily basis. They generate revenue. Our business model, for those that don't know, is based on a revenue share, which we share with our creator partners. That part of our business is kind of our core business. But we've also, over the course of the last few years, been building a number of other ways where creators can monetize on our platform as well. So we have a product called channel memberships, where creators can have their fans subscribe to their channels and get access to special perks, like digital perks like emojis and shout outs, and ask me anythings that are exclusive to them, other sorts of perks. And that happens to be a way that creators can generate revenue on our platform. You mentioned live chat. There's a product that we have that's called Super Chat. When a live chat on a premiere, for example, is occurring, users can pay a small dollar amount for their particular live chat to stand out in that feed, and oftentimes they get called out by their creator, etc. So it serves a dual purpose. You're supporting your favorite creator or musician or what have you, but you're also getting recognized and getting called out. So we have a number of areas that we've been investing in that provide monetization above and beyond our advertising business. And then, of course, we also have a subscription set of products. There's YouTube TV, but there's also YouTube Premium and YouTube Music Premium, where consumers can sign up for subscriptions, and we share the subscription revenue also with our creators.
Got it. Okay. And you just perfectly segued into the last thing I want to talk about, because I know we have to go here in a few minutes, but I want to talk about the sort of original content side of things, whether it's YouTube TV or YouTube Premium, the kind of, we just saw Netflix report these giant earnings because everybody's at home just trying to find stuff to watch. And I know YouTube traffic is up and things like that, but are you guys investing more or thinking more about this kind of, high end, high production content? I mean, we're in this weird world where like every TV show just looks like a YouTuber now. They're just at home talking into webcams like we are. But then on the flip side, it seems like there is such appetite for more stuff to watch, especially the kind of, high touch bingeable things going on. Have you guys changed how you think about any of that recently?
Yeah, I mean, I think what I would say there is you kind of hit it in your question, which is there's a tremendous amount of great content, whether it's learning, whether it's news, whether it's entertainment, whether it's music, sports, what have you, on YouTube. And that's what we're seeing users consume, because our YouTubers have put it there. They're continuing to put it there, etc. And you're describing where kind of the rest of the world looks like YouTube now, but that's already been the case with YouTube. And so it's no surprise that users are finding what they're looking for on our platform. And we've seen, I described the growth in learning. We're seeing in live news content consumption on our platform is up 75% year on year. What I would say about our own efforts in terms of how we work with creators, and as well as some of our efforts around YouTube Originals, we have really tried to orient our efforts there on making sure that what we're doing our job to help humanity fight this crisis. So as an example, things that we have focused on are connecting medical professionals with YouTubers who have huge followings, millions of followers. Lily Singh, Trevor Noah, Dr. Mike, folks like that. We connected them with Dr. Anthony Fauci, for example. Those videos are about delivering useful information to users, but they've been done in a YouTube style with huge YouTube followings behind those creators, and they've gotten 30 million plus views. So that's an example of how we're thinking about content. Our YouTube original slate is oriented around encouraging people who can to stay at home to help those, not just help themselves, but to help those who can't stay at home protect themselves. So we're orienting our efforts in terms of how we work with our creators around what YouTube can do to really help people fight this pandemic.
Okay, but it doesn't sound like you're particularly interested in like having, funding the next Game of Thrones on YouTube.
Our focus right now, from everything, and hopefully you got a sense of this in terms of what we're talking about, is making sure that YouTube is doing its part to the best of my ability, our entire team's ability to help people really deal with this challenge that we're all facing right now.
Okay, fair enough. All right, and truly last question, and then I will let you go. Look out, I don't know, 2 years from now. What's different about YouTube because of coronavirus? Like, so much of this feels like, hopefully life will someday go back to normal. But are there things you feel like are going to stick?
I think that there's always, whenever there's a challenge, whenever there's a change to what's happening in the world, oftentimes it gets reflected on YouTube. And I think that this challenge will be similar to those in the past as a result of it. Having said that, this is also very completely unprecedented in nature, and we've had to take unprecedented actions in terms of, for example, how we, detect everything from how we detect violative content on our platform. You may recall a few weeks ago, we had to take our entire extended workforce of human evaluators, raters of content offline to protect their health alongside all of our employees, and have had to rely on machines more. We think that, the way that we deal with this content and policy violations is a combination of machines and humans, but we will probably learn something about sort of how that combination works best to protect our users and our creators on our platform. That's an example. You touched on one in terms of the growth of things like live consumption on our platform. And one that I will certainly take away that has been, an area of passion of mine from before, but I think will be an important one going forward too, is, people come to YouTube for all sorts of purposes, learning, connecting with others, to be entertained, to relax, but they really also do come to YouTube looking for information, looking for hard news, hard medical information, etc., and making sure that we can continue to deliver on that promise, like, we hope to be doing in the case of coronavirus well into the future, is going to remain a top priority for me as well as for my team.
Fair enough. All right. Well, Neal, thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much to everybody who joined us in Zoom and on YouTube. This was great. I really appreciate it. I'm really sorry we didn't get to see your kids. It's a real bummer, but this was great. Thank you again.
Thank you, David. Take care.
All right. Take care.